Namaste. This is Yoga Therapy Podcast, and I'm your host, Shira, yoga teacher, yoga therapist, and Ayurvedic wellness educator. In these conversations with experts in the field of yoga therapy, you'll find out what it is and how it can help you and your loved ones to reclaim well-being. We'll touch on physical as well as mental health, physiology, emotions, women's health, spiritual well-being, goddesses, and self-development in the fullest sense. Listening to another story can change ours, so thank you for showing up, and let's begin this journey together. So, hello everyone. Today we are joined by this wonderful, powerful woman called Sharon Greenspan. So welcome, Sharon. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for hosting. This series is fantastic.
Yeah, I love doing this. I love meeting all these amazing people. So Sharon, I'm just going to introduce her right now. She is an international speaker and coach for more than 25 years. She's a certified yoga teacher, yoga therapist, a positive neuroplasticity expert, a holistic health practitioner, board certified. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
And Reiki practitioner. She is a life nutrition and health coach, and she teaches powerful programs that shake things up. So this is amazing. And I read something else that you transform. These programs are transformative as well as comforting and calming. So please explain how you do all this.
Well, it's one of the things I love about yoga therapy, and it's been my approach all along, is to treat the whole person.
Mm-hmm.
And so initially it's meeting someone where they're at. And most people are in a high state of anxiety and stress, especially nowadays. And so it's meeting them there in a comforting way and in a way that builds trust and calm, and then helping them to move through that so that they can transform. And as you know, I like to call it annihilating anxiety.
Yes,
because we're just going to blow that out and get rid of it.
Okay, good. Yes, I wanted you to explain that because it sounds very, very strong. Okay.
Yeah, so, it almost sounds stressful and PTSD inducing, but it's and I struggle with that, but I want to be clear, like I'm not helping people. We're not going to manage your stress. We're going to get rid of it.
Okay, good. Yes, thank you for distinguishing that. So please, Sharon, tell us your story, how you got to yoga, how it became yoga therapy, and how it is now what you do.
Yeah. So, it's really interesting. I have not served in the military, although I've served my country. And after experiencing a lot of different symptoms and a lot of life changes and not recognizing myself, it became clear to me at some point that I actually had PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know. And PTSD is fueled by anxiety. I didn't really know or identify that I had anxiety. And that anxiety came after years and years of really intense stress. But I didn't really think that I was stressed out. I thought I was being really flexible and kind of coping with this difficult situation. And I think that's what happens for a lot of people. This level of stress and anxiety is normalized. We feel these things, we post about it on social media in our groups, and the other people say, oh yeah, don't worry about it. I experienced that too. And it's fine. And we're all in the same boat. Well, we might all be in the same boat and it's not okay.
It's a sinking boat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not how life is supposed to be.
No.
So somewhere along the line in there, I started doing yoga. I picked up, I'd done yoga for a lot of years. And like many people, you kind of waver back and forth. You do it for a decade or so, and then it kind of falls away because we're getting stressed out and doing all this other stuff. Right. And then I picked it back up again. And I found that just yoga classes really got me in my body. The style of yoga that I most often took classes with was something where there would be time in between postures. And there, for me at least, there would really be a sinking into my body and connecting breath and body. And I call that out because we know there are many styles of yoga in the yoga world, and some of them are stretching and exercise, and some of them are powerful. And those are really great. They definitely have their place. I guess I'll also add, I built more strength in yoga than I ever did with bodybuilding. I still lift weights. In college, I lifted weights a lot, and for probably a decade after. And one day in meditation, I got that I should let go of all my weights. And I was like, oh, okay. And I really got the message to use my body weight. And I think that's an important piece because we need to rely on ourselves. And for me, that's still a core message that carries throughout my lifetime, is relying on myself in a myriad of ways. And that's one of my passions about my work. But getting back to my story, which is the question you asked. So I got back into yoga, and I had a really strong practice. And I thought, okay, I want to up the game a little bit. So I got a 200-hour teaching certificate. And that was really more, though, for me to learn more. I am a natural born teacher. I've been in the world of training and corporate training. And so I started teaching classes at a local recreation center. And I loved it, and I enjoyed it. And I really saw a transformation in my students. I mean, they would write me notes telling me how much better they were sleeping, how much better they were feeling, how their stress levels were reducing.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is cool. I said, you know what? I want to learn more. I want to up my game. So I decided to do a 500-hour certification. And part of that was a 100-hour course that was geared for PTSD. Now, the course was actually developed to treat veterans. But again, we know that it's not just veterans who have PTSD. And I think there's what I'm going to call social PTSD more and more and more in the world, whether it's anxiety that's produced from social media, and that's very much in younger people, whether it's all these tragedies that we're seeing. I know here in America, we're having wildfires in the West, and it's just out of control. I know in Europe, there's been outrageous flooding going on. So, you know, all of these crazy traumas. Of course, there's, you know, COVID and the disease going on in the world, and people losing a lot of people. And so I think there's just all this, again, what I call social trauma going on. And I remember in that course, it was co-taught by a licensed clinical social worker. She had been director of a PTSD residential program for almost a decade. And she was going through, and in PTSD, there are actually 4 categories of symptoms, and several symptoms within each category. And the clinical definition is if you have a certain number of symptoms for once a week or twice a month, depending on the symptom. And she was teaching all this, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, checking the box, checking the box, checking the box. And it's like, out of all of these symptoms, I had all but 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
You
know what? I still didn't identify as having PTSD. I was still like, wow, that's a lot of symptoms. But wait, clinically, you have to have all of them, and I don't. So I guess I don't, you know, have this issue. And, you know, and again, it takes hindsight to see what's really going on. But I did find that the practices within that program, and there is literally a specific physical practice, and it definitely made a difference in how I was feeling. It helped to lower my stress levels. And so that's a big part of what led me also to become certified as a yoga therapist. And again, I love that you're doing this series to help people understand the difference. So for me, yoga classes are very much about exercise and very much how we treat our body. And they can be helpful with stress and anxiety in a very general way. But yoga therapy does a couple of things. It looks at the specifics of what's going on. And that could be maybe somebody has a bad knee. And so on top of all this other stuff, their left knee is a little wonky, and postures need to be customized for them in order to accommodate that. Because if their knee is wonky, probably their hips are out of alignment, and they're doing something funny with their ankles to compensate, and with their shoulders to compensate. Yeah. So it encompasses that, and a practitioner has that body of knowledge, but it also looks at the whole person, which we don't often do in a class. In a class, we address the whole person physically, but we don't address the emotional components, the spiritual components, if that applies, the psychological components. And that's what I love about yoga therapy, because it looks at all of that and it connects it. And I find that that's the biggest piece for people is connecting
all the pieces. Yeah, I totally agree. There are obviously some teachers and yoga classes that do cater to a broader spectrum of being. Yeah, luckily.
Yeah, and there are some therapeutic classes that deal with specific issues. And those are more finely tuned. There's always going to be a difference between personal attention and general attention.
Yeah, but you're right. I think that's also the most healing part of yoga therapy, is that we connect all those aspects of being a human in this complex world.
Yes.
Okay, so then you started studying yoga therapy. Which training did you do? With which school was that?
Yeah, so I did a school. It was a studio, but what I love is that they brought in speakers. So it's actually a very broad training. And I've trained with lots of teachers across the country. Mostly, I think they were all American, but all across America, including one from Hawaii. One of my favorite teachers is actually a paraplegic. So, and he's Matt Sanford, if you're familiar with his name. He teaches and he's paraplegic. He's in a wheelchair.
Wow. No,
and he is a really great yoga teacher. So Studio Bamboo is the place that I was. My teacher actually has taught at Omega and Kripalu and some of the famous retreat centers or teaching centers here in America. She has worked a lot with veterans. I think she's coming out with a documentary movie about her work in the very near future. Yeah, it's really powerful. And we were exposed to some of that, working with amputees who still feel the vestiges of their limbs, even if the physical limb is not there.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting to me, because you mentioned earlier that I am an expert in neuroenergetics. And when it comes to energy work, actually one of my first clients was somebody who no longer had a voice box, and he had a hole in his throat. And so we worked a lot with that because he could still feel things there. And so working on it energetically, and when it comes to the yoga therapy with that, helping these people to connect with that feeling, even though the body part might not be there, energetically, it's still there.
Yeah. And how would you describe energy to people who don't really feel or know that kind of body? Because some of us are very sensitive to that kind of experience of an energy body or things happening within the body that are not visible, but still felt.
Exactly. And so 2 points about the energy. So the energy is in the body, as you mentioned, but it also extends in a field out of the body. So I always bring up a couple of experiences that most people have had. If you're a parent, you don't have to be in the same room to know what your kids are doing. You get that feeling and you know what they're up to. Yes. That's because you're energetically connected. The other thing is many people have had the experience, you walk into a room, whether it's a party, an elevator or something, and you just kind of get a vibe about what's going on. Or there's somebody across the room and you instantly connect, and you just have a feeling about them. That's because your energy is interacting with their energy.
Okay. Would you call that neuroception or interoception? Is it chemistry, physiology? Can we relate it to that?
Yeah, it's applied physics.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, think about the radio. You're driving in your car and the radio waves are out there, but until you tune the station, you can tune the station and you start getting static, and then you fine tune the station and the song comes through. And it's the same thing. So the energy is out here. And in yoga therapy and in energy work, we're fine tuning because maybe you're feeling even some of that static. And the static is coming out of your own body. That's part of the anxiety and stress. You can also be picking that up from other people. And so we want to fine tune that so that you can know what's yours, what's not yours, and how do you get yours tuned in so that the song is coming through and you can sing along versus just feeling that uncomfortableness of static. Nobody drives in their car for half an hour listening to static.
Well, some people do. I used to have a friend who couldn't fall asleep unless there was static on.
That's a little different.
Yeah.
But
yeah, but I know what you
driving their
mean.
car.
Yes. But I know what you mean. That's a really good analogy. Thank you. Yes. And that's what I always feel like. I come to my mat or I do yoga or I turn into my day and go, okay, what am I feeling and what do I need to do to attune to today's plans? Or yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. So, Sharon, did you want to say anything more on your story? Did you want to elaborate, or are we going to move straight into the practice?
I think I'd like to move into a practice because it's really about feeling what's going on. And in this practice, if people are feeling in a calm state, and I'm smiling while I say this, I am actually going to ask that you get in a little bit of an uncomfortable space, because that is part of the work. But also because I want people to notice that breath works and it can change how we feel for good or for bad. And so that's part of why we need to use our breath in a very conscious and specific way. I'm glad you brought up the energy because I want to bring a little bit of that into it. So, and let me maybe take a moment to sidetrack and explain neuroenergetics. So we do have this energy body. If you're familiar with the term chakra or chakra, we have major energy centers called chakras in our body. And again, those chakras also extend out of the body into what's sometimes called the auric field.
Can we just explain to listeners who know nothing about yoga what a chakra is? I know what it is, but some people might not know. Yeah,
I think that's what I'm doing. So it's
okay, sorry.
An energy center. That's okay. It's a little different from like that feeling in your gut. Sometimes you get butterflies in your gut. It can be something like that. That could be an energy center called your solar plexus. And there's something happening with the energy in there. And so we have these different energy centers, and depending on which system you've studied, it could be 7, 8, 10, 12 major centers.
Yeah.
And then those centers extend off the body, what's sometimes called the auric field. Okay. And again, that's kind of that bubble that surrounds you. Maybe it has to do with your personal space. You get in an elevator and you feel uncomfortable from somebody who's standing right next to you. Or maybe you're feeling really nice when somebody stands next to you. And that's your auric field kind of rubbing up against their auric field. And so these energy centers inform how we're feeling and also can be used to change how we're feeling. And so learning how to connect in with some of them is really important. And so in neuroenergetics, I'm working with that energy field. And honestly, 95% of the time, I'm grounding people. So people often, you feel like you're just kind of out there and things are crazy. That's because you're usually not grounded. So we work with grounding people. And then I help people to actually change their brain so that these new energetic patterns hold.
So you're doing top down, bottoms up through physiology.
It depends on how it presents, which direction we work.
Okay.
And similarly, energy can come in, energy can go out. Both of those things can happen. It's just dictated by what the body needs to return to homeostasis or that balanced place. But the piece of neuroenergetics that's a little different from, say, just Reiki or another energy modality is this rewiring of the brain.
Okay.
We have a lot of information now about neuroplasticity, and that's what we're doing. So we have these wires in our brain, for example, and the wires that fire together get stronger and stronger. Yeah. So oftentimes we reinforce negative stories in our head, and we're actually creating neural pathways in our brain that reinforce that. So I want to create neural pathways that are positive and reinforce those.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get into a practice then.
Yeah. I'll mute myself. Okay?
Okay. And people can do this practice either sitting or standing, so whichever one resonates for you. And I'm just going to ask people to close their eyes or soften your gaze. And just take a moment to become present. Maybe just taking a few breaths. And just begin to notice how you're feeling. Maybe notice how your whole body is feeling. Maybe notice how your heart is feeling, because we do concentrate a lot of feelings within our heart. And whatever you're feeling, I want you to think about rating that feeling on a scale of 1 to 10. And customarily, we say 10 is uncomfortable and 1 is comfortable. So just kind of figure out about where you are right now. And then if you're in a really calm place, maybe you're a 2 or a 3, I'm actually going to ask you to come up about 2 steps. And you can do that by breathing more heavily and by taking swift inhales. If you're in a place where you're already, 5 or more, just stay there. And even though it's uncomfortable, I would like for you to just sit with that discomfort for a minute and really notice how it feels. Sink into your heart. And then take a nice, slow exhale. Open your arms left and right, extending them as far as you can. Really sending energy out those fingers, stretching your fingers as far as they can go. Turn the palms up to the ceiling. And as you inhale, notice there's a rainbow between your 2 hands. And I want you to inhale and bring the hands up overhead, connecting the palms. And then draw those 2 palms down the center into your heart, bringing all of that beautiful rainbow energy. Inhale, extend the arms left and right, really stretching long through the fingers. Exhale, relax. Inhale, arms up, connecting those 2 hands. Exhale, bringing that energy into your heart. Letting it settle into the heart. Inhale, extend the arms left and right. We're going to do this a couple more times. Extend those fingers really strong. Inhale, hands together. Exhale, slowly bringing those hands to the heart. Inhale, arms left and right. Taking your slower exhale here. Inhaling, arms overhead. And again, we're going to slow down this exhale as you draw that energy into your heart. So the palms are coming down, palms are connected, drawing that energy. Maybe you even bring the base of the thumbs to touch your chest, really connecting that energy. Let's do 2 more. Inhaling, arms left and right. Slow exhale. Inhale, bringing those palms together. Feeling that energy. And then slow exhale coming down. By this point, it might feel like your arms are moving through marshmallow. Maybe you bring the the base of the thumbs into the chest. Inhale, arms left and right. Last time, really stretch those fingers. And on your next inhale, bring the arms overhead, moving slowly. And then a slowest exhale of the practice, bring the arms down. Let the base of the thumbs touch the heart and settle into the heart for a moment. Keep the hands here or relax them down. Notice how you feel in your heart and in your whole being. And once again, revisit that scale of 1 to 10. Where are you now? And sit in that good feeling, marinate in that positive calmness for a few moments. And when you feel ready, you can blink your eyes open. And just come back to the present slowly. Good. Thank you. I know for some people it might have been a little uncomfortable getting into that place of discomfort, but hopefully I've left you in a place where you're more comfortable and settled than before. Again, our breath is really powerful, and I really want people to feel that change.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that for you, Shira? What did you experience?
So I was at about a 4-3-4. And so I breathed really fast just to get myself a little bit more nervous because I know I can regulate myself, so it's okay. And then there was some resistance to the rainbow. I really felt like, I don't want to do a rainbow because it's really hard to be soft. You know, we're so conditioned, like you say, we're doing this fast, and it's even prestigious to be anxious and fast and aggressive.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so there was that resistance to the rainbow, and then once I kind of let go into it, then it felt softening, and the repetition helped, definitely. to soften more and more and to take that in. And so it moved to a 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was like, I don't know, 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
To be able to move 2 steps in a few minutes just shows how powerful it is.
Yeah. And I think it's important, the visualization and the feeling, the physiology, to really cement that.
Yes. And thank you for the feedback about the rainbows. I'm always a little hesitant, like this is not rainbows and unicorns and fairy magic. At the same time, I do think having a visual is important. Mm-hmm. And they say when you actually have an acute anxiety attack, the mm-hmm. fastest way out of it is to engage all 5 of your senses. Mm-hmm. Name something you see, something you hear, something you smell, something you taste, and something you feel. So the more we engage the senses, the more we can get into our body and into our energy field.
Yeah. I think another important aspect in the work that I've been doing is understanding that not just using the mind to understand and to cognize, but when you use visualization and imagination, you're using the creative aspect of mind, which is often left behind. And that's why we don't feel whole. We need to include and engage all of ourselves.
Yes,
to bring back
absolutely.
wholeness. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, we have to balance that brain, the left and the right side.
Yep.
And you're right. So often in society, imagination is squashed.
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
silly.
Actually really important. The intangibles are equally as important as the tangibles.
Yes, well, that's what creates all the wonderful things we enjoy in life.
Exactly. You got to dream it to be it, right?
Yeah.
And that, I will say along my journey, one of the mantras that came from me and that I realized was that faith and fear cannot mm-hmm. occupy the same space in my heart at the same time.
Really?
Let me say that again. Faith and fear cannot occupy the same space in my heart at the same time. And I really use that because when a fear comes up, mm-hmm. I name the fear. Mm-hmm. And then I think, what would it be like if I had faith? And, there's the saying, fake it until you make it. Mm-hmm. And so even if I don't have that faith, I do imagine what would I feel like if I had faith that this was going to work out okay.
Yeah, and then feel that.
To feel it.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you actually begin to engage the energy and you do shift things.
Yes. Well, that's a big part of what I'm writing about, is that it's the energy body that is the medium between something becoming a physical or a mental construct, whatever it is. And I like this Dan Siegel. He asked physicists in a big conference, so what is energy? And they all came to the conclusion that it's the movement between potential to actuality. And that is what our energy body is. So we can move, and because breath and physiology are connected to our energy, that is the pathway to change.
Yes, absolutely. And I know in high school physics, I learned that everything is made of molecules, and those mm-hmm. molecules are vibrating. Mm-hmm. It's just that my desk, which seems solid, the molecules are vibrating a lot slower than my voice, right? And then the air we breathe. So even you're in another country, you're across an ocean, but we're connected energetically because mm-hmm. there's all this space and all these molecules in between us. Mm-hmm. And that is a truth, and that exists. What we know is that those molecules are vibrating. Why are they vibrating? Because the charge of the atoms that are in between them. Mm-hmm. And within our body, those electrical impulses happen, and they are carried by water.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right? And there is moisture in our air, and that is still carried by water. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why in energy work, and even in yoga, and even in any practice, you need to be well hydrated.
Yeah.
Because that water has to carry the impulses. Mm-hmm. It's also why energy work can be done remotely.
Mm. Oh, wow.
And I have clients all over the world, and it doesn't matter where you are.
That's interesting.
We're just cueing in. And I've been on both sides of that. I
Okay.
have somebody that I exchange with, and I remember one time at a retreat, I was going through a very difficult transition, and there was actually some people like personal attack on me. And I called my friend. I'm like, hey, can you work on me when you get time? And honestly, I could feel when she was working on me.
Yeah. 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 I know that feeling. I have it with my child. I had it with my mother. Yeah. You
Yeah,
tune in to people. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why in the world of yoga therapy, it is very important to have a visual. Many times I know that people are reluctant to do that, but it's not only to see how someone is holding a physical posture, it's to get that energetic vibration. And it's just like faster, easier way to tune in. Yes, I can do it without a visual, but it's so much easier. And for both people. I mean, like you said, I mean, we have visual right now, even though listeners don't have that. And that's because this is the first time you and I are really having a discussion, and we wanted to have that additional connection point.
Yeah. Yeah. And we are very visual beings. I think
Yes,
80% of our sensual orientation is visual. So it's very strong and
exactly. And
important.
more so with social media.
Yeah, media. Yeah. Yes.
But that's another
Yeah.
piece of what I love, though, because it connects us globally.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always good and bad to everything. Yeah. Okay. So I had some questions. What makes yoga therapy so effective for anxiety and PTSD?
Because it treats the whole person. So again, my PTSD comes from social and comes from trauma. You know, again, PTSD can be fueled by living through a fire, living through rape, abuse. Even people go through these horrible jobs, and you stick out a horrible job because you need the money, because you can't find something else. And if you have a truly abusive boss, that's traumatic. Trauma happens to all of us. And you know, if it happens and then you kind of move through it, and a month or two later you've negotiated and you're feeling okay, that's one thing. But when trauma happens and it sticks, and you can't get the thoughts out of your head, or you take that past experience and you project it into the future, you're worried that your next job is going to be the same. That's where trauma happens. And looking at that piece versus PTSD from a veteran who lived through an explosion, those are both PTSD, but they have a different origin. And so they're going to affect the person differently. They might reside in different places in the body. And so even though anxiety and stress present as symptoms, how to address those can be very different.
Yep.
And yoga therapy will look at that. Yoga as just a class can help people move into a calmer state. You're going to work out some of that excess energy in the body. You might come into some restful poses like child's pose, but honestly, most people with PTSD or severe anxiety cannot do shavasana.
It's too triggering.
A lot of people laugh at that. They're like, wait, you can't lay and lay down and enjoy being relaxed? No, that shavasana is actually the hardest pose. I have had people get up and walk out of a class when shavasana occurs because they can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you see people fidgeting the whole time. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Eyes open. Yeah. I totally agree. What did I want to say? I think another important aspect is, I was just having a conversation before you with Susie Renshaw, and she's an expert on trauma, and she was saying just the moving into the body and finding that there is some feeling of goodness or safety, and that by moving the energy around, that you shift certain patterns, because there are patterns that are cemented not just in our brain but in our body that we have.
Absolutely.
Held.
And that's one of the hardest things, is people getting into their bodies because it's safer to not be.
Yes, and to dissociate.
Yes, exactly. And one of the things I often bring into a practice or working with someone is helping them find that place in their body where it feels okay. It might not even be good yet, but just okay. And I had somebody who was a stroke victim and in her wheelchair and having a really hard time. And we found that the tip of her nose was a place where like it felt okay. That was not a dangerous place. And so literally it was spending a lot of time connecting with the tip of the nose, because we have to remember what okay feels like. Sometimes we absolutely lose that ability and we're just in this hypervigilance 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah. I also know someone who finds the tip of their nose very safe, even funny. It makes it laugh. So yeah, it shifts the physiology. Okay, what tools do you use? Because you said you use different tools, and one of them is the neuroenergetics. But what other tools do you use?
Oh, great question. Well, I first came into the whole field of healing and wellness through success coaching. And that was actually brought over from England, from sports physiology. So sometimes it's coaching people and helping them to identify what's theirs and what's not, where boundaries are, setting themselves up for success, and just having small successes along the way can do a lot to help shift the self-perception. Another piece of my journey was also using food as medicine. And that is also huge. And helping people to maybe tweak what they're eating and drinking a little bit to bring about some healing and some calming feelings in the body are important tools. So I like that there are different doors that people can walk through in order to bring a higher state of health and calmness to their body. And yeah, sometimes they walk in knowing what they want to change. Sometimes there are places of resistance, and we talk about that to find out, well, what is the resistance and why, and how did that get there? And so we can challenge beliefs that are in the heart. We can challenge what people are eating. We can challenge how people are breathing. I know that the study of breath is just huge right now.
Okay, good.
There's so many books coming out on different kinds of breath, whether it's Wim Hof or any of the people that he studied with and came into being with. There are some wonderful apps now. I was using a great app for a while that you can program it in different ways, whether you want to energize or calm down.
Oh,
and
wow.
It will actually help count your breath, count the cycles, and you can like pre-program different programs on it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Wow. That is good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I
can
have
a lot of tools.
Yeah, I'm sure. I just want to ask, I want to go back to your success coaching. I can imagine that helps bolster people's confidence, and that confidence gives them resilience to move into the discomfort and the challenges. Yes,
it can, because it comes really from deep inside. And my way of coaching is really different from a lot of people's. It's not about being a cheerleader. And it's not about consulting, which consulting is different from coaching. Consulting is giving advice and suggestions about what to do. Whereas coaching is a lot more of questioning and also just sharing observations. And it's kind of funny because I get a lot of feedback from people like, oh, I never saw it that way. I never thought of it like that. I don't know what it is about my glasses that they just see things in a different way from other people. And, people tell me what they're going through, and I just kind of share, well, what I'm hearing is, and I just share the way that I hear and see the situation. And it opens a door that they didn't even realize was there. And so it helps them to shift their perception. And then we see how can they set goals in a way that sets them up for success. And you're right, when they start having more successes, their confidence grows. And when their confidence grows, they feel like they're better able to take ownership of their health. And that's the physical and the mental and the emotional. And then we just get into a cycle where they're cycling up and taking more ownership and having greater successes from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a terrible business model, but I don't care about that, because my goal is to get people self-sufficient.
Yeah, you want to get rid of them.
I kind of do. I love my clients, absolutely, but I don't want to create dependency. And I think that's one of the things that we are geared towards and socialized is to dependency. I mean, I was raised like that. It's like there were two ways to do it, the wrong way and dad's way, you know? And it's, I mean, look at school, right? We're school. It's like you want to get the A and you're conditioned, like, and you have to compare yourself to other people.
Yeah.
You know, Jenny got an A, so I need to get an A. Well, no, you don't. You need to do your best and find out, what do you need to maybe shift in order to do your best work? Are you self-sabotaging in some ways? You know, and what do you need to just tweak a little bit in order to do something better? And we're not really taught that valuable learning process.
No, not at all.
We're focused on the goal.
Yeah. The process is completely left behind. It's not part of the project. Yeah.
Exactly. And then we read the self-help books that say it's the journey, not the destination.
But we haven't got a clue what to do in the journey.
Exactly. I don't know how the heck to start taking this journey or what it even means. So until we have somebody really help us decipher what it feels like to be engrossed in the journey and experience the journey, we don't know. We only know what we've already been taught.
Yeah, and looking outside the box is so hard sometimes when that's all you've ever been taught.
Exactly. I mean, I learned about codependency and how to have poor boundaries. And then I started to learn about what boundaries were and how to have boundaries and how to set boundaries with people. But you know what? I still had no idea what true support felt like. I still didn't know what unconditional love felt like. And it's taken me decades of going through a lot of that and doing the self-help and doing the work, and then finding someone or multiple people who were truly capable of giving what I never felt before. And that empowered me to also give that
to others.
And I didn't know what it felt like to give unconditional love. And so once I was able to experience it to some degree, then I could start growing it. And then I knew what to look for. And the looking was a feeling. And again, that's another important piece, because we so confuse thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
I would bet 95% of the time when you're working with clients and you say, so how do you feel? They're going to tell you what they're thinking. Well, I think I'm really nervous because, right? You're laughing.
Yes. It's very hard for people to distinguish the difference. Yeah.
Exactly. And you know, I will boast a little bit, I guess. I'm in a wonderful relationship. We got married last year after 12 years of being together.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. And a lot of people are like, wow, you guys have something really special. And it's true. And a piece of it is our energetic connection. But a piece of it is we do give unconditional love. And very early on, we made two decisions together. One is we decided there was no right and wrong. There are just different ways of doing things. Now, believe me, there are plenty of times that we do things very differently.
Of course, there's got to be some magnetism.
And the other thing is that we decided that we're on the same team. And no matter what's going on, and even when we have differences, we're on the same team. And I think that's important because many people don't realize that. And for me, when we were dating,
I think people lose sight of that sometimes. Yeah.
Well, when we were dating, and we lived in geographic areas, so we lived about 3.5, 4 hours apart.
Oh.
Okay. So it was very interesting because a date was like a 2 or 3 day date. Because if I'm driving 3 hours or 4 hours, I'm
You're
staying
gonna
overnight,
stay.
like spending a couple of days. Right. And so I noticed that I would feel more like myself when I was around him.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was away from him, I just didn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was really significant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a piece that many people don't look at, whether it's romantic relationship or a job or the friends that they're choosing.
Any kind of relationship.
You're buying, the place that you're living.
Yeah.
It has to feel better somehow. It has to make you feel more like you. I don't like this analogy of being incomplete and somebody else makes me whole, or it's my other half. I think it's more that it brings out the better in me, and it makes me feel more like me than not.
You sound like Jack Nicholson when he's in As Good as It Gets. Do you know that film? He says that to the woman when he finally gives her a compliment.
Yeah.
Such an asshole in that, but he's so good when he gets it right.
Right.
But I know exactly what you mean. And it's also taken me decades of understanding what I'm feeling and when that's the right feeling. So I was just trying to explain that to another person that I was dating. It's like, but I just feel so good when I'm with you. And that's why I want to connect more and see you more often. It's because it just feels so right. And I've never had that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And that should be enough guidance, I think. And most people just forego that. Like that's superficial, or that's irrelevant, or that's just chemistry. Like it's not important, but that is physiology, that is energy. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And another thing that I see sometimes in the energy world is that people will often say, "Oh, I just feel beside myself today."
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
literally,
well, that's
they are.
Yeah, they're out of their body.
Field is shifted to one side. I said, "Yeah, let's get you back in your body."
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in all these old expressions.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. You know, when my first coach, again, my success coach, I remember when it came to talking about business things, she said, people are going to hire you because they want to be like you or they want to be around you.
Mm.
And I found that was so true. I mean, even I liked being around her. She was calm. She was centered. You know, it felt good to be around her.
Yeah. It's a charge.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is so great. Do I have any other questions? No. Oh, the only thing maybe was that you explained how we did the exercise. Why the anxious state first? What was the idea behind that?
And thank you for asking that, because that is not something I would normally do when I'm working with clients.
Okay, good.
I did that specifically here because I wanted people to see that breath affects how we feel.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were in a really calm place, I wanted them to have that experience of feeling anxious and then using their own breath, their own energy, their own body movement to come into a calmer place.
Mm. So you're giving them self-agency, basically, showing them they have that.
Yes, exactly. And another key piece I did, which I'm not sure a lot of people do, is that rating. And that's really critical to the work. I ask people to rate. And I think what I forgot to do that I usually do is ask people to set an intention of how they're going to change that rating. Because if we're not looking at the target, we're never going to hit it. So normally I have people, check in, how are you feeling? Rate it on 1 to 10. Yeah. And then how much do you think we can change it in this session?
Yeah. I also use rating for my clients because it's important to see where they are. It just gives you a reference point. Oh, that's actually where I am now. And I would like to be here. Or you can see as you progress in the day or the session or the weeks or the years that there is that movement.
Exactly. And I think it also helps people to connect with their body and to have a metric. And it also helps them to start setting realistic goals. You know, somebody comes in and they're just off the wall with anxiety and stress. And they're like, oh my God, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm a 15. And they think they're going to get to 0 in half an hour. You know, I'm not sure we're really going to get there. So it helps them to self-regulate and to see where can they get to. Yeah. And it also brings us in tune with one another. So, you know, maybe I'm thinking, okay, you're a 15. I think I can get you to like an 8 or a 9. But if they're saying, you know, I think I can get to a 7. Okay, maybe I need to stretch. Maybe I need to have more faith in them and the process and how we're going to work this. And I'm going to attune to where they are.
Oh, that's good. Good reflection. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I think that, again, it's a partnership. I'm not here to heal or fix anybody. I'm here to help illuminate their path and help them reconnect with their body and take ownership of their health.
Wonderful. Your work is wonderful. Yes. Yeah. Do you want to leave listeners with anything else? Anything you feel that you haven't said or you'd like to share? Or
I think that everybody is entitled to live the life that they deserve. You know, it's not the life that you want, that you dream up. It's the life you deserve, because we really all deserve peace, love, happiness, and to feel good in our bodies.
Yeah. And to feel good about ourselves.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you want to leave any links? I will put them in the show notes, but if you want to tell listeners where they can find you, if they'd like to work with you. Yes. Absolutely.
So they can learn more about me and my work on my website, which is SharonGreenspan.com. And I know that you're going to put the link below. And I have a lot of videos explaining what the work is more, explaining what will happen during a session. And again, I do work with people in my office, but also remotely. So it doesn't matter where in the world you are. I have clients on every continent, almost, not Antarctica, but lots of continents. And on my website, you can book a free 15-minute conversation. They usually last a lot more than 15 minutes, but
yeah, I can imagine.
Try and contain it a little bit. And I'm really happy. And that's just, to get a better sense of who I am. Does this feel like it might be a good fit? And it has to be a good fit on both sides. I don't take everybody who calls me, because sometimes it's not a good fit. I am blessed that I have a pretty good network. And if I can't find somebody that I think might be a good fit for you, I will reach out and find that person. That's how passionate I am about people getting the help that they need.
Yeah. Wonderful. That's really great. Yeah. So important. Well, yeah. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for being here. It was wonderful to talk to you.
It was great to connect, Shira. And I'm so glad that you're doing this whole series, because yoga therapy is really developing as an industry. And I think helping people to understand how it differs from a regular yoga class, and knowing that it is another tool that could be part of their toolbox in addressing the entire mind-body complex is really important.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Thank you for that compliment. Okay, bye everyone. That's it from us. See you next week. Do you want to say goodbye, Sharon?
Bye everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
So thank you everyone for staying to the end of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I really love doing these talks with these amazing people. And if you want to know more, just take a look in the show notes. There's plenty of links and ways to connect with either the guest or myself. If you want to work with us or find out more about us, just check out the information in the show notes. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend or week, and you'll be hearing from me next week. Bye.